Hello everyone, Andy Wolverton here from Journeys in Darkness and Light, talking today about movie books, but not only that, I'm also talking about one of my favorite events that happens each year, the Summer Reading Classic Film Book Challenge, sponsored by Raquel Stetcher from her blog Out of the Past. Now, we recently had Raquel as a guest on our virtual library movie discussion program, actually for the second time. And if you missed that program, we hope to have it on our library YouTube channel soon. Now, if you're watching this video or have subscribed to my YouTube channel, I know you're already a fan of classic movies and probably classic movie books. That's what Raquel's challenge is all about. Read 6 classic movie books this summer, share your reviews, and become eligible for a prize. But really, the prize isn't the main reason. The main reason is sharing what you've read and having other people look at your reviews and say, I'd like to read that book as well. Now, you can choose a lot of different classic movie books. Raquel gets into all of that on her blog. You can do books about movie stars, directors. You can do books about individual films. You can do the source material for movies, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. There's all kinds of things that you can do, but I will link to the description below for Raquel's website. And these reviews don't have to be extensive. They can be very casual. They can be quite short. Again, you can find out more, including how to sign up, on the website outofthepastblog.com. So today I'm going to go through some of the books that I'm considering for my classic Summer Reading Classic Film Book Challenge. In fact, I've already read 2 books for the challenge. So the first book is a novel, actually the source material for Akira Kurosawa's 1963 film High and Low. The novel is called King's Ransom from 1959. This is the 10th book in the 87th Precinct series of police procedurals by Ed McBain, whose actual name was Evan Hunter. I'll link to my full review, which is on my website now, but this is the story of a business executive named Douglas King. Desperate to take control of the company he works for, King has tied up practically all of his money into a company takeover. Then he gets a phone call from a man informing King that his son's just been kidnapped and they want $500,000 in ransom money. But when King's son walks into the house, King realizes the kidnappers have abducted the wrong boy. Not King's son, but the son of his chauffeur. So does King pay for his employee's son's return? If he does, his business deal will fall through and he'll be ruined. King's Ransom is a great police procedural, and it's interesting to see the differences between the source material and Kurosawa's film High and Low. I read this on my Kindle, but it's readily available in print. Next, a biography of one of my favorite film noir actors titled Edmund O'Brien, Everyman of Film Noir by Derek Sculthorpe. I'll be reviewing this one soon. I read this book on Kindle, but it's also available in paperback from McFarland Press. And we're going to see some other McFarland titles in just a few moments. Now, the books I'm about to show you, I probably won't get to all of them, but I'm going to do my best. So these are the prime candidates for my summer reading challenge. So first of all, we have The Art of American Screen Acting from 1912 to 1960 by Dan Callahan. Now, and I've already started reading this book, as you can tell. So far, it's fantastic. One of the complaints that I get from people a lot who are new to classic film is, boy, the acting back then was really bad. Well, sometimes it was, but it wasn't always. The acting is reflective of the period. And Callahan goes back to the beginning, to the silent era, and discusses why the acting looks and feels the way that it does, how it evolved, and it goes through certain stars and how their acting careers changed how acting developed throughout the first part of the history of cinema, at least in America. So you've got chapters on people like Lillian Gish, Louise Brooks, Greta Garbo, Marlene Dietrich, Betty Davis, James Cagney, Cary Grant, Clark Gable, all these different actors, and it takes us through the evolution of their styles, what worked for them, what was considered good acting, what wasn't. And it also helps us to look at what we consider good acting today. So really, really interesting book so far. I can't wait to talk about it and review it. Next up, this book ties into a program that we have coming up at the library, a discussion on July the 16th, and I'll provide a link to that as well, a virtual discussion of the film Chinatown. And to prepare for that, I am going to be reading The Big Goodbye by Sam Wasson. So this book, I guess, is about a year old, and it is from Flatiron Books. Had to take a look. So if you are a fan of Chinatown, this is going to be a book that you really, really want to get your hands on. Again, it's still quite new. Your local library may have it. You may want to buy your own copy. It's in hardcover. It may be in paperback by now, but take a look at The Big Goodbye. I am a big fan of especially 50s science fiction and horror, and I'm also a big fan of anything written by Tom Weaver, which includes this book, Interviews with B Science Fiction and Horror Movie Makers. Now, you always have wondered, at least I have when I watch these B movies, I'm like, why did they make it so cheap? Why didn't they spend any more money? Why didn't they get a bigger star? All of these questions are answered by the people in this book. And these are interviews with not only the filmmakers themselves, but also sometimes the producers, sometimes the stars, and they go into a lot of detail about the decisions that are made when you're making a B movie, especially a horror science fiction movie. This is great because this is a book that you can pick up and put down. The interviews aren't very long. Each interview is probably like 5 or 6 pages. So it's something that you can just go back to from time to time. But it is a fascinating look at the evolution of science fiction and horror, especially in the 50s and 60s. Next, I have a book that was recommended to all of our virtual movie group, all the people in that group, by Christina Lane. When she was our guest, she's the author of Phantom Lady, the book on Joan Harrison. And Christina Lane actually studied with this author, I believe, Thomas Schultz. And it was very influential in her life. And this book, I know, is a book that she highly recommends. The Genius in the System, Hollywood Filmmaking in the Studio Era. One of the goals that I have is trying to understand how the movie studios evolved from the very beginning to today. And the studio system, how that worked with the stars, the directors, the producers. It really was a system, and it really was one of genius. And I've only gotten in a couple of chapters through this book, but this is fascinating film history. It's not stuffy or boring. It's very exciting, vibrant. So far, this is turning out to be a wonderful read. So, The Genius of the System by Thomas Schultz. Next up, one of the things that I really love too about watching classic films is discovering all the wonderful character actors. The people that show up in, it seems like, every other movie. Like so many people will end up in every Western that's ever been made, or every film noir that's ever been made. This is a book called Names You Never Remember with Faces You Never Forget. And this is a compilation by Justin Humphreys. And as you can see on the front, you will probably recognize a lot of these faces from several movies. It's a really good mini biography of several of these guys, like R.G. Armstrong, Royal Dano, Bo Hopkins, L.Q. Jones, Mark Lawrence. And even though those names may not mean anything to you as I'm speaking them, once you see their faces, you'll know exactly who we're talking about. So I've read a couple of these already. This is a fascinating book, and this comes from Bear Manor Media. The only thing about this book that I don't like, it's just about guys. what about all the female character actors? There are some great ones. So I hope they do another volume that features the ladies. I have always wanted to read a biography of this next director, but I've always been intimidated because he's larger than life. And I'm talking about Orson Welles. So I have decided to read Orson Welles by Joseph McBride, who is quite the authority on Welles. This book comes from Da Capo Press. It's readily available. You can find it on Amazon. You might be able to find it at your local library, maybe even your used bookstore. It's not a huge book, so I'm thinking that this is probably a fairly concise overview of Welles' career and his life. So really looking forward to this. Another one I'm looking forward to, this is from the University of Mississippi Press, which publishes some outstanding film books. And this is The Crime Films of Anthony Mann. And this is by Max Alvarez, who is really considered to be probably the authority on Anthony Mann. This, if you've read anything about Mann, you know that he spent quite a bit of time doing westerns, and he did westerns, but he did a lot of film noir first, often teaming with cinematographer John Alton. I have not looked at this book yet, but I look forward to reading about that collaboration and the way that Mann created the style of the noirs that he did. So he did so many great noirs, which are discussed here, I'm sure. So this is going to be a lot of fun to go through this. This is this is from University Press of Mississippi, always doing some great stuff. Finally, a film book that I just got in the mail just a few days ago, and I've just barely dipped my toe into. This is American Gothic, 6 Decades of Classic Horror Cinema by Jonathan Rigby. Now, if you're not familiar with Jonathan Rigby and his work, you should be. And I will just admit right here that I was not familiar with it until I ordered this book. This is part of a trilogy. There is this book, American Gothic. There is also Euro Gothic and British Gothic. Now, Euro Gothic is very hard to find. It is sold out from the publisher. So if you're trying to find that one, good luck. I'm hoping that they will reprint that, or maybe you can get it from your library or interlibrary loan. This is so packed. Rigby really knows what he's talking about. There's great pictures here, great stills, super great information. Now, I was so impressed. I've only read the first chapter of this, which covers the silent era. I'm finding out about films I had no idea even existed. But Rigby, this is a very deep dive, but it is very readable. If you are into horror, you're going to want to own these volumes. Right now you can get this from the usual places, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, those places. But again, Euro Gothic is going to be hard to find. So let's hope that we get a reprint pretty soon. This is from Signum Press, a British press. And again, I think this is going to be a terrific read. So that's my plan. Those are the books that I'm hoping to cover. And we will see how far I get. I probably won't get them all done, but that's my plan. So I would love to hear what you are planning to read, so please do share. And in the meantime, happy reading, and I'll see you soon.